Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Guy Aitchison's Reinventing the Tattoo Community, where tattooers, apprentices, collectors, and the curious are encouraged to join in these live streams, real world events, share and inspire, and ultimately create better art and tattoos together. We beam out nearly every day, and with your help, have evolved into a quality network of amazing live and on demand tattoo and art shows that have all been receiving rave reviews. You're currently watching the Self-Improvement Sunday Drawing Group with me, Jason Leeser. Artists, feel free to zoom in by clicking on the link in the event calendar. And if it's your first time joining one of the Reinventing the Tattoo drawing groups, please make sure to let us know because you could win a limited edition t-shirt. You might be beaming in from YouTube or Facebook. Maybe you're listening to the podcast, but you can always get the latest event schedule and notifications at the official Reinventing the Tattoo Community, found at both app stores, the Apple App Store and the Google Play Store, or directly at community.reinventingthetattoo.com. This is working for you and you can hear me. Please let us know in the comments and the chats, and please tag a friend who loves tattoos. We're always trying to encourage more engagement on here and get some different perspectives. So the more people that join us, the better. Also, make sure my audio is working, if that's cool. Yeah, just drop a comment. Let me know. Where was I? Oh, yeah. We have a whole bunch of staple shows that we always encourage people to tune into, starting on Sundays at 1 p.m. with me, Jason Leeser. And that's followed on Mondays at 11 a.m. with the Tattoo Weekly Show, hosted by Lauren Gregory, Gabe Ripley, and Jake Meeks. That's followed up Monday at 9 p.m. with a live subscribers exclusive drawing group with Guy as he leads us through Reinventing the Tattoo chapter by chapter. Tuesdays at 10 a.m., we have another live drawing group with Ricardo Sertivant, very good friend of mine, extremely talented artist and one hell of a tattooer. I'm actually trying to book an appointment with him now to get something done by him, although I don't know where I'm going to put it, but I'll find a spot. Wednesdays at 12 noon, we have the Tattoo Now show with Gabe Ripley, which takes a little bit more of a look at the business side of tattooing. And Thursdays at 12 noon, we have the Tattoo Collecting podcast, hosted by Fawn Baker and Jordan Ruckus. We have a couple of upcoming real world events, live in-person events. Actually, next weekend, I will be up at the Allentown Tattoo Convention, the Skindustry Tattoo Expo in Allentown, Pennsylvania. Please, by all means, if you're local or semi-local, feel free to stop by, say hi. Maybe we can chat a little bit. I'm going to be doing some interviews, some tattooing. It's going to be a good time. Very small, very personal show. It's going to be a great time. April 11th through 14th, we have the New Hampshire Inspiring Tours with Sean Barber and Nick Baxter. You can get on the waiting list for the next one because this current one is completely full up. But you can always get on the waiting list for the next one by going to http://inspiring.tours to get on the wait list for the next one, as I mentioned. May 20th through 22nd, we will be in Hell City, Columbus, Ohio for the Hell City Tattoo Convention, which is looking like it's going to be an absolutely incredible show. June 3rd through 5th, 2022, myself and Lauren Gregory will both be at the Deadly Tattoo Convention in Calgary, Canada, which is looking, if you like illustrative tattooing, this is gearing up to be an absolutely incredible show. It's not going to be one that you're going to want to miss. July 29th through 31st, we have the Rubber City Tattoo Invitational in Akron, Ohio with Tony Urbanik, which once again is looking like it's going to be an absolutely incredible show and definitely not one to be missed as well. Would like to take a quick minute to go through and thank some of our sponsors, people that make this show happen, such as Raw Pigments, rawpigments.co, an ink company that's tapping into the source. I've started to use a lot of these in my own personal lineup with great results. Highly recommend you give them a shot. If you like more of that old school powder-based pigment, you cannot go wrong with Raw Pigments. It saturates quickly and easily, goes right into the skin, and it's super vibrant. As well, all of those pigments that are used in raw pigments have been tested and are light fast. So you know that over time, while you're still going to get a little bit of dulling out of that color as the tattoos age, it's not going to completely fade away in a few years. Next, we have worldtattooevents.com, the largest, most comprehensive resource for tattoo events worldwide. And they're now updating and constantly keeping everything up to date as soon as they can, because everything's still getting rescheduled. There's still some conventions getting bumped around. Apparently, we've got a new wave of COVID coming through, so we'll see how that affects things. But for the most up-to-date convention information and event information, go to worldtattooevents.com. Next, we have D-Lyze Pro, also known as Dermalyze in the rest of the world. Protect your art. If you're still using saran wrap to wrap your tattoos after they're done, might be time to upgrade. Feel free to take a look at what it's all about. Go to YouTube, type in Dermalyze Pro, and see what everyone's talking about. This stuff was designed by wound care specialists and is designed specifically to heal tattoos. So I don't know about you, but piques my interest. Next, we have tattoonow.com, technology for tattooers. The leading edge in SEO and professional development for tattooers of all levels. They're now accepting new clients. So if you're really trying to reach a wider clientele base, if you're really trying to pull in those clients that you want to tattoo, highly recommend you take a look at Tattoo Now for your SEO and marketing needs, because they will deliver for sure. And of course, this wouldn't be Reinventing the Tattoo without going through and saying a very special thank you to the founder and inspiration behind Reinventing the Tattoo, Guy Aitchison. You can find it guyaitchison.com. Guy, thank you very much from the bottom of my heart for everything that you have done for the tattoo community. I would not be the artist I am today without you. So go take a look at guyaitchison.com, where you can pick up a copy of his Biomech Encyclopedia, his DVDs. He's got a couple of limited edition coil machines that he's selling. He's got some original oil paintings for sale, as well as countless prints and other awesome goodies. And of course, I would like to acknowledge and say thank you to the Fireside Tattoo Network and the Apprenticeship Diaries. For those of you that might be an active tattoo artist, go through and take a look at the Fireside Tattoo Network if you're really trying to bump some of those skills up as well. They've got a wealth of information on there that I have found really helpful in my journey, and I'm pretty sure you will as well. If you're an apprentice or an apprentice hopeful, go through and take a look at Amy Nichols' The Apprenticeship Diaries. It will go through and help you lay out what it's like to be an apprentice, what to expect, what not to expect, the different things that should be going on in your apprenticeship. And it's going to clue you into some of the horror stories about apprenticeships gone wrong. It's really, really insightful and very entertaining. So highly recommend you take a look at the Apprenticeship Diaries. As well, if these videos and these shows are, if you feel they're valuable, if you like what we're putting out there, please make sure to go through and click on that like and subscribe button. Make sure to give us a follow, and that way we can continue to provide you with more content along these lines. Otherwise, thank you guys all very much for everything, and yeah. Let's get this show on the road. We're joined here. We've got Medusa with us. We've got Kyle. We've got Seth. Seth has become a staple visitor here to these shows. Hey, Seth.
What's going on, guys?
Not much, man. Not much. What are you getting into?
So this is somebody had seen some of the gritty illustration paintings I've done. The Flyers mascot Gritty, kind of a maniac and an ambassador to the NHL over recent years. So I had done a gritty Mandalorian, and it's on my page. I called him the Gridalorian. So he said, "Oh, it'd be cool to see a Grogu gritty." So that's kind of what we're working on here. Yeah.
Or
So
maybe even the Mandalorian holding gritty.
I did that. Actually, it was the Mandalorian. It was gritty as the Mandalorian holding a baby Stanley Cup.
That's awesome.
With instead of his blaster, he has a t-shirt cannon. I'll actually, before the end of the episode, I'll see if I can grab one. I have one down in the car. I'll show you guys.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty fun. So.
Oh, yeah, Seth and I were having a bit of a discussion earlier today about factors to think about when designing large scale tattoos. I've been reaching out to a lot of artists that I personally know about some challenges I'm encountering. I'm working on my first female full upper torso tattoo, and it is way more difficult than I ever could have imagined. Dealing with a lot of the shapes, a lot of the flows, where things overlap, the belly button, and how all of that can factor into the designs that you're creating, and how to go through and structure designs to either work with or work around some of those challenges. It's like I said, it's way more tricky than I originally thought. And yeah, it's tough. It's real tough.
Do you have any pictures of what you would come up with the Art Nouveau face?
So I've got a couple of rough thumbnails here. I just kind of threw some pictures together just to kind of get some ideas down on paper, just so I could see what would work and what wouldn't. And I'll go through and spotlight myself. And let's close that. So you can see over here, I've got my little reference image. This is an image that they sent me. It was a screenshot of a Justin Hartman full female upper torso. Obviously, I'm no Justin Hartman. There are very few people in the world that are. But I took that as kind of inspiration for the way that things were going. And so I started to come up with a couple of different ideas. And I found out very quickly that when you start to factor in female anatomy into doing a torso piece, things can go wrong very quickly. For example, you'll see only two basic layouts. That's the head below the chest and then the head in the middle of the chest. The reason being because as the shapes of the female torso come into play, what you don't want to do is have that image distorted too much, which could warp the way that everything looks. So it's really, really tricky when trying to do something like a face or something that's on a much larger scale. You don't want that to distort at all, if at all possible, in order to create a much larger scene. You can see some of them in here. All of them pretty much have like one continuous theme, except for like two of them. They're all holding, or three of them. Most of them are holding a human heart, which was a really awesome concept that, I went back and forth with. I still haven't run any of these drafts over with the client to see what they're thinking, if they wanted to include that, but I thought it was a pretty cool idea, so I decided to throw it in there. Just as an example of potentials and possibilities. So one thing that I didn't really factor in when I took this project on was the underlying shadows underneath of the bust and how that was going to interact with the composition of, the images I'm creating. And what I didn't factor in was the fact that that's going to give a much darker area, and I have that kind of exaggerated on a shadow layer. It's going to give a much darker area and darker contour to a lot of these areas. And just to point out a few things that I've learned in this process, the belly button is the bane of my existence. Like seriously, like it's in the most awkward spot for doing a female torso. It really is, because as you can tell here, Let me get something. There we go. Here's the belly button. Right there, right there. So this one's out.
I mean, it's interesting because that first one that you just pulled up, you know, like I see the one with the purple rose that was at the end of that row. Yeah, there with the red rose with the purple hair kind of laid out. I like the positioning of the head. But that first one seems like, you know, you solve the issue of the belly button immediately by putting it in the hair and having those lines. You know, it's important having those lines run. I guess it would be perpendicular to the belly button, like come across it, right?
Right.
And crossing it, and you're kind of you almost you take out like the dip of it, because now we're watching, our eyes are moving all the way across it instead of down into it. Like you don't want something coming vertically down into a vertical hole or a vertical scar. You want to go across them, right? So like, right. I like that. I mean, and that the positioning of the head on the first one is, it seems to be killer. But if she's looking for something coming up onto the chest, you would mention about doing Art Nouveau stuff. Would you consider doing like kind of like a crown or like a halo behind her of like a, you know, like that Aaron Delavendova, whatever his last name is, I forget his last name.
Delavendova.
There you go. You know, like the Muka style, you know, where you would just have a halo come up around over the top portion of her chest up through the middle there.
So, and that's something that I have played around with. In fact, one of my original ideas was centering the face here and then doing like that circular Art Nouveau frame.
Yeah.
You know, it's like the circle with all the tiny little circles that border it.
And you do a thing like where you take the shape of an anatomical heart and use that as the repeating pattern on the border. So that you're reinforcing that, you know what I mean? Is it getting smaller and then larger up towards the top and smaller again? But I would center that in the center of her head, like the center of her forehead, almost like like down where you have it there, come down to the center of her, maybe middle of where her diaphragm is. Have that be the center of the frame, and then have the frame come up and around.
Okay, so you would just get a bit of the border up here.
Yeah, I wouldn't even make it that big. I would I would make it a little bit more narrow, coming up maybe on the just to the outs or to the inside edge of the nipple, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, but I would and do that, but drop it down a little bit further, so that the center of it is in the center of her head, you know, or the set. Yeah. You're getting closer there. I would go down even a little bit further, and then make like a nice, you know, nice broad shapes in there, you know, that. Yeah. Yep. And then playing around with the Nouveau design inside of that as the halo. Because then it doesn't matter, you know, all the lines and everything, all the motion and the movement of that will go with her breast, you know, it'll go with the contour of the chest. And if anything gets interrupted by any sort of body motion, it'll look a little more natural, because you're going to have all those different design elements going on in it. And now we focus more on the face below, and it draws our eyes downward into where her face is. And that really interesting spot on her hip there where the heart is just killer. It's great composition. You nailed, I think, for sure.
So this is definitely one of the ideas that I'm going with. I just couldn't figure out how to tie anything in with this, but I like what you were talking about the frame just kind of coming up slightly.
Yeah.
You know, and then that would even open me up for like maybe some Art Nouveau, like corner accents here.
100%. That's a great idea. Yeah.
Just to kind of fill the rest of that awkward negative space.
Yeah. And I like the idea too of doing like, you know, finding a theme in the main subject matter and using a portion of that as a repeating pattern in the halo design, you know, like the anatomical heart, just like a graphic version of it, like a line drawing version of it. That's cool, man. That's a good idea. Up on the corners too. Yeah. And
one other thing that I picked up on was that if you, especially with the belly button area, and I'm going to harp on this for a while just because this was like a nightmare. It was an absolute nightmare. I figured that there were one of two ways that you can deal with the belly button. You can either incorporate it, you know, and have this belly button area here kind of flow with everything like I have going on so far. Yep. So it would actually create a darker dip in the hair. And then from there, I could always shade out from there.
Yeah.
And bring that out. So that's one way to do it. The other way is to go through and try to use that and find your furthest point back, right? Perfect example is, where was it? So like on this one, and let me see if I can figure out which one this was, because I've got everything broken down into layers. All right, so that's this one. So if I took this and I move this over just slightly, right, and tuck this back right underneath the jaw, being the furthest point back, that would then allow me to go through and use this, fill this in black. Come on. There we go. And then use this as like my base shadow tone, since that's already going to be pushed back even further.
Yeah.
So that's another way to tackle that problem. Sure. I think the only other issue is the fact that she does have a belly piercing. So like, I'm going to be stuck with a couple of jewels.
Well, if you put it in that spot, it'll look like an earring.
Right. And that was one of the initial ideas I came up with was, okay, cool. Let's play off of that. Let's do that as an earring, right?
Yeah.
That would make a lot of sense. It would work really, really well. And it would be like a very subtle little, oh, that's cool.
Maybe even the one with the hair, that first one. Let me see that other one again where the hair's coming.
Right. So that's one of the other issues. Right. And one of the other concepts I came up with was, okay, well, if she's got, let's say, you know, so if that's the belly button, let's say there, and then let's say it's like one of the dangly ones.
Yeah.
That could theoretically still work.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. If you put an earring on her other side, 100%.
Right. So whatever we would do there, we would probably have to duplicate over here.
Yeah. I think it's important though, too, that in either case, right, what you're getting with both of those where it's going to be successful is the lines going across the belly button.
Right.
You know what I mean? Rather than dipping down into it.
And that's something that
those are both great solutions, Jason.
So, and this is something that I really started to try to work out in advance because, and I didn't really realize this until I did my value study. I have it marked out. If you look at like these blank templates that I drew up from the actual client. Mm-hmm. So I have the belly button already laid out, right? Yeah. I have it marked out, but when you start throwing images in just to play around with composition and stuff like that, they're opaque images. So it's going to cover that up. So when I did a translucent value study to see where the belly button placement was and how that was going to interact, as well as a lot of these cast shadows that are going to be created, I started to look at what was successful, what wasn't successful, and how can I go about incorporating this into other things.
Right.
And, you know, as I mentioned before up here with this guy, I sort of did that over here where I think it's slightly off still, but yeah, that could work well over there. One of the other ideas I was playing around with was drapery, because if we throw drapery in, that can also work well. As far as creating like, you know, a shadow in the drape itself.
Yeah.
To go through and kind of mask that area. You know, so all it would do is become a wrinkle.
Yeah.
So that was another option that I was playing with. Now with this one, I do like this one because the face is more prominent. I centered everything, all of the shoulders underneath the bust line, so that way it kind of accented that and played off of the slope of the shoulders.
Yeah. Which
seemed to work okay, but then once again, you run into the issue of that goddamn belly button.
Yeah.
You know. So quickly seeing like, I love this layout and composition, maybe more for a back piece, because where the belly button lays now, never going to work.
Yeah.
You know, same thing with this one. I love this pose. And this is just a stock photo I found, but I love the angles of the pose and the shoulders, the hand, the curve of the face. Not that
Right.
you guys can really see that well because it's pretty dull color, but like slope of the shoulders, slope of the hand, curve of the face coming up. You know, I really loved all of the angles that you got in this pose. And I think it would work great, but not as a frontal, not as a torso.
Yeah.
So, I mean, these are some of the things that I like to try to consider and think about when it comes down to large scale design. I know a lot of people that, you know, when they're doing large scale design, maybe they've done enough of it that it becomes second nature and they don't even really think about it anymore.
Right.
Right. This is still something that I think about just because I'm constantly trying to push myself to do better and to improve on what I know. And these are some of the challenges that I'm coming across. And it's like, these are things I didn't even think about. Right.
Well, it's stuff you don't even really, you wouldn't realize this unless you're actually doing studies and doing your homework in it, so to speak, like that's how we all get better, right? It's like going the extra mile on certain projects when you have the opportunity to, sometimes you don't always get this opportunity and you just got to kind of go with what you know already, or go with your what you have in your image bank in your own brain and that information. But to be able to take this kind of time on it, I mean, if I were your client, I would be stoked right now that you were putting this much effort, into it.
I'm not sure how much time I already have into this little thumbnail. Yeah, I've only got about 8 hours into this little thumbnail page. But that's 8 hours worth of, okay, I figured out what's going to work and what's not going to work.
Right. Yeah, that goes, and you use that information, right? Like, it's any of those young tattooers out there, right, watching what you're doing right now. You use that information going forward, right? What you're doing now, this process will inform other processes.
Yeah, we also just had a really good comment from Victoria Coolidge on the Facebook page. And I'm paraphrasing here, but remember how women age, right?
Yeah.
So remember how our bodies age over time. So that's something else to take into consideration there.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's something that I didn't even really, I'll be honest, I didn't even really consider.
Right.
Now I'm going to have to go back through. Thank you for pointing that out, because I need to go back through and redraw a lot of stuff.
I feel like that's a really good point, especially the head. If you were considering having the head up on the top portion, that's
right. I mean, over time, I wouldn't want her to turn into Edward Munch's Scream. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah, I just don't think that would be a very good look.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just wanted to share some of these challenges and some of the things that, I've been coming across.
Awesome.
So. Yeah, Medusa, what are you working on today?
Hello. Morning.
Hey.
You just asked me in the middle of a big stretch.
I know, that's why I asked you.
Thanks. I accidentally, you can hear me all right, right?
Correct.
Sure. Perfect. Okay, cool. I accidentally logged into my Battle.net account and accidentally programmed my credit card and accidentally bought a Diablo 2 Resurrection. So I am currently cleaning up disk space so that I can install it and also further procrastinate the work I need to do.
Procrastination.
I'm so good at it. Yeah. I've got actually tattoo I'm doing later today of a tarot card I'm pretty excited about.
That's pretty awesome. Tarot cards are great.
They're always fun subjects to tattoo. Like I never get tired of the tarot theme.
Yeah, I've always a bit hesitant to really get into like designing them, just because I know there are so many subtle nuances that like I just really don't want to screw anything up. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah,
Like you have to have like certain things in there, like the fool has to have his legs positioned if he's upside down in a very specific way. You have to have certain tiny little aspects of certain things in there. Otherwise, it's not going to be accurate.
There's a lot of pictorial symbolism, visual symbolism in it. Like there's like meanings behind every small detail. For example, on the death card, the ship in the background has its own specific meaning, and there's a reason why it's in between two mountains. Most people would just be like, oh, it's just a guy riding a horse in the foreground, without noticing that there's like tiny stuff everywhere, especially with the Rider-Waite tarot decks. But I feel like this person is pretty chill with their concept. So I have full faith that I'm going to be able to pull this off and have a very pleased customer. I've also been practicing tarot for a long time, so I'm pretty comfortable with the concept.
I see. I see.
Yeah. Besides that, I'm also getting ready to print out more flyers to post around town because my motorcycle was stolen.
Oh, no. I saw that.
I am so bummed. So
What kind of bike?
I'm so bummed right now. It's a Honda Rebel 250, just a little zippy guy. Her name was Sheila, and she was my baby girl. I love her. I even have like little carrier harness for Bomber and a little motorcycle helmet and goggles for her because we go on rides together. So that's a bummer.
Well,
yeah, I
good
came
luck.
back. Thank you. I went on a cabin trip with my shop this week, and I came back, saw that it was stolen. Yeah, the cabin trip was super fun. My coworker's dog rolled in a pile of bear poop and then shook himself every time he stood next to somebody.
Sounds like a good guy.
In hindsight, it's hilarious. At the time, it's just like, no, we're on a mountain. We've hiked up like 1.5 miles in the snow. Now we got to go back covered in poop.
Sounds exactly like the last time I went camping.
Oh, you rolled in a pile of bear poo as well?
No, but I did step in it. And then I had to trek it around with me everywhere I went for the rest of the trip.
Super fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. If anybody can manage to if you can manage your shop in a way that you can have it closed down for a couple of days, just like 2 days, spend a night with everybody from the shop out in the forest on a camping trip or renting a cabin or some sort of work retreat. It is so good. Like everybody loved having like a little refresher, get outside, but also being able to spend time with each other without having to think about work.
Yeah.
Or, doing work stuff. Of course, work stuff always gets brought up when you're in a cabin.
There are
with
things outside of work?
Yes, and it's very important to acknowledge it. It is healthy for you. It makes going
that's a
back to
foreign
work so much
concept.
better.
I can't. My mind doesn't work that way.
Quick question: Did your coworker roll in bear poop on purpose?
My coworker's dog.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And so yes, he did.
So then, yes.
I I left my dog back at the cabin because, you know, she's an elderly Chihuahua. She's not one much for hikes. So she was saved from the poo. But yeah.
Adorable.
No, I swear though, extracurricular activities with your coworkers that don't involve being in the shop can be so nice. At least if you have a crew where everybody gets along. Like we came back.
You mean like
everybody-
working at conventions or traveling and doing guest spots? Right?
Honey, are you okay?
Those are vacations to me.
I love work.
Vacations are where I get to go and do tattoo stuff in other places. This is a foreign concept to me that there is something outside of tattooing and art. Like,
I think it was last year that my coworkers, they all went to a Iron Maiden concert together and had a blast.
Nice. Yeah, me and my coworkers
It's not outdoors.
last week.
Nice.
okay, shows I can understand, but like, I can't wrap my mind around like not doing something tattoo related for like more than a day.
Oh, trust me. It was a lot of people were busting out their iPads being like, I gotta draw this sketch. And then we'd have somebody else drunk in the corner being all like, no shop talk at the cabin. And our boss checking emails being like, does anybody want to take this message? We got a inquiry about this. And one person will be all like, yeah, can you forward me that email real quick? And then another person will jump in and be all like, where in the world? Stop thinking about work. You know, it happens, but it's chill. Everybody came back feeling super refreshed and in a really good mood. We all bonded. We all had a really good time. Now we're all ready to get back to work.
Nice.
That's awesome. I'm happy to hear it. As much as I don't understand it, I'm very happy to hear it.
What's
Try it
Kyle
sometime.
working on? Is that a vulture?
Yeah, bud.
Little
Kyle's
contrast
crushing
exercise.
that thing.
Thank you. I've been having some trouble trying to make it stand out from the background.
I think you did it. I think you did it pretty well. I mean, you've got a lot of those lighter values there. It definitely separates itself from the background and the fence.
Mhm.
I'd say watch out with your tonal depth on the inside of that forewing where it's super dark. You may want to lighten that up just a hair,
Right. Okay.
because otherwise it's going to put that at the same plane as that furthest back point in the night sky.
Right. Okay. I see what you mean. Thank you.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of decent podcasts out there. People are interviewing tattooers. But we were having this conversation the other day that at my other shop that right, I'm up in Massachusetts right now. So the shop I work at down in Media in PA, just about, you know, some of these podcasts, they're talking to like some of the most influential, interesting people in the business. Yet most of the podcasts, the interviewers just end up talking about themselves. It's kind of a bummer. It's like, all I want to do is hear what these people have to say. And it's like, you know, I don't know. I'd like to just hear somebody, you know, a show where somebody can just tell their story straight up, uninterrupted.
I don't like podcasts that much. I like watching videos and I'll listen to, I have a few select podcasts that I really, really like. But for the most part, I'm too much of an attention whore to sit and listen to two people chatter without being allowed to chime in.
Okay.
So that's my problem.
Like I'm an old, like I love hearing just some of the stories that these people have. You know, I think I become fascinated with, like, we'll call it the tattoo family tree, right? Like who came from where and at what point in time. And I love all of that stuff. And I really appreciate being able to, when you meet these people in person at conventions or like traveling, you're visiting a shop, spending, an hour with them even, or just kind of hearing their story firsthand, where they came from, who they worked with. It's just fascinating to me that, we're all a lot more closely related with things than we realize, I think.
Yeah, tattoo. Well, as much as I respect that and I love hearing those stories, that used to be a way in which tattoo artists could maintain their credibility. And it's something, I mean, it was one of those situations, or it used to be one of those situations back in the day where unless you could trace your lineage in tattooing, like I learned from so-and-so who learned from so-and-so who learned from so-and-so
Right.
who learned from, Lyle Tuttle, right? It's like, okay, cool. This is all verifiable because I can call the third person in the chain, verify that, so-and-so was taught by so-and-so. Cool. There's your validity. Yeah, you can come and work at my studio. Nowadays, with a lot of people that are being self-taught, a lot of people that, are being self-taught and then training other people. So there's no real lineage there.
Right.
I don't really see it as having quite as much significance, but to have that kind of history and that kind of story behind who you are as an artist is incredible.
Well, I think that, that's a good point, but I feel like, it could be a slippery slope, man. Like, we end up, you don't want any of that history to just disappear forever. You know what I mean? And there's so many people coming into the business now that are really, really good and technically proficient almost immediately, because they have such a rich art training background and they're able to apply all of this knowledge to tattooing and take their work to another level or inspire a whole new generation of people. I think it's, for me, it's important to not lose some of those stories and some of that history, right? Like there's a lot there to be accounted for. And I know recently there was I think I don't know where it's available. I have to check to see where the platform it's available on, but Philadelphia Eddie has his books that he put out. They're like books on tape. It's just him reading the books himself. So to hear him tell these stories are just wild, man. They're really interesting. And yeah, I would. I definitely want to get into reading more. But any chance I have to talk to one of these people that have been around, and learn a little bit more about the history, I think it's important to carry that on somehow, and not like in a corny type of a verifiable way or an ego trip where you're like, well, I worked with this guy or so and so or with that girl at this point in time, and so you have to respect what it is that I do. I think nowadays there's enough people there that they're doing great work that you respect the work, right? Like if somebody's doing a good tattoo and it's sharp, then that's where that portion of the conversation begins and ends, is with the artwork. But beyond that, right, like the the idea that we're all, I think we said this before, Jason, we're all standing on the shoulders of giants somehow, one way or the other, whether you find your own way into the business or not.
Absolutely.
It's just, it's important to not forget those things. You know what I mean?
Oh, I completely agree.
Some of these older generations get faded out, just from time. Sorry.
Yeah, it's one of those things, one of the most monumentally moving things that I have ever experienced in my life was at the Philadelphia convention many years ago when they had a reunion of the Bristol Tattoo Club.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Which includes people like Lyle Tuttle, Philadelphia Eddie, Shanghai Kate, and many, many others. And they got a group photo of the remaining original inductees into the Bristol Tattoo Society. And It was like legends in the tattoo world, that were there in person, that were walking around. Bowery Stan was there. I mean, just some incredible human beings with incredible stories about where tattooing has taken them in life.
Yeah. Yep. You know, if young tattooers out there, if you see these people at conventions or you have the opportunity to stop by the shops where they're still working or they still own them, go. Definitely go and just talk to these guys and girls and pay attention to some of the things that they're saying, because there's a rich history behind this industry.
Go get tattooed by Carrie Barba. Go get tattooed by Shanghai Kate.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
You will literally have a piece of tattoo history on you forever.
Yep, for sure. I mean, it's the way that the industry has evolved. You know, there's an entire generation of people that will never know about, you know, needing to make their own needles or what happens when supply companies run out of stuff. Like, it's crazy.
Hey man, I'm waiting for the day when supply companies run out of like pre-made needles and stuff. I'll be one of the only people left tattooing.
Oh, I still got all my needle jigs, man. I can make curved mags. I can do it all.
What?
Oh my God,
well,
dude.
What you talking about with them fancy curved mags?
That's what I'm
saying. You must think you're special.
I can make them all, man. I'm grateful that I don't have to breathe in flux anymore. That's great.
I know, right?
But
yeah, man, if I have to, I'll tie tattoo pins to a stick and poke people with a stick if I have to. What?
I was just going to mention that at the last convention I met somebody who is a Reinventing community member, and turns out they are tattoo because their mentors were like this. I think they had the same mentor or the mentors in their same shop or something. But anyways, that's what I was just thinking about the whole tattoo family tree thing.
Yeah. What's that? Well, say again, what was it with people being in the same shop as their mentor still working?
Oh, just we found one person who is actually a Reinventing community member, is a old school tattooer, been around for a while, is with their history and their mentors is like the tattoo cousin of my boss.
Oh, that's awesome.
Like there's a mentor crossover somewhere in the line. So it was like really, really cool because I didn't realize how small the tattoo community was until they were just chatting. And I was just like, I want to hang out with you guys. Tell me all the stories. Let me soak up that information.
That's what I'm talking about, Medusa. That's exactly what I'm talking about. You know, being able to, you know, if we, I mean, there's a million and one, you know, cliche things that you can say about forgetting history or, you know, things like that. But to take an active part in that conversation with somebody and then go, you know, oh my God, and you kind of put the things together and realize that you may have studied with the same person, or, you know, even like then you take it one step further and then you start talking specifically about just the artwork portion of it, right? That there are, you know, there are tips and little things, you know, techniques that people use that you'll see other people use and you're like, oh, where'd you learn that from? And they'll say, well, I picked it up from working with this person, or when I was traveling, I worked at this one shop. And you're like, oh, you know what? That shop also hosted this other artist who did the same thing. And you're finding out like through the grapevine, like these things that people pick up on, and they're able to share the information, much like we're sharing information and ideas and talking and discussing art. You know, these other people did the same thing, and it trickled down from somewhere, right? It didn't just like all of a sudden appear. It's interesting to be able to find that lineage and you know, kind of exploit it and hold on to it.
Yeah, he runs a tattoo museum in Idaho, so that's not too far away from Portland, Oregon. I think it's Tim. He's He's a Reinventing community member, and he set up the free tattoo history lessons on the
There you go.
course thing. He's really cool. I spent a lot of time at his booth when I probably should have been working. But you know what? That is working. Learning about tattoo
yeah.
history is working. So that's my justification.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really want to go check out the museum. That being said, I'm trying to get my boss to teach me how to make acetate stencils. I want to do
Oh.
a tattoo on myself with an acetate stencil.
Yeah.
I want to film it to prove that I'm dedicated and I will learn everything the old school way if I have to.
I'll tell you.
You are
like,
going to be in another level of hell that you have never understood.
Yeah. You get your hands on one of those old acetate stencils and copy that, then now you're only one thing removed from having a piece of history on you, right? Instead of just doing your own design, trace one of theirs.
Yeah, my boss has all of like her old stuff and some of her mentors' old stuff. So we just got to plan a night where we can get together and do it while we're not working or, out in the woods, rolling around in bear poop.
Yeah.
But I'm really excited. When I mentioned, I was like, do you have anything? Can you teach me about acetate stencils? And she was just like, the look in her eyes. There was like
so proud of
frustration
you.
came right back up. I think she was thinking about like the process, and she's like, "Oh God, acetate stencils."
Yeah.
She's like, "Hold your breath, don't breathe too hard."
Yeah, seriously,
Blow
that
away
stuff
the
is no
stencil.
joke. And if you are not unbelievably careful, that stencil is gone before you realize it.
I have heard so many horror stories. I've never heard a good thing about acetate stencils, except for the good thing is that, we know where we came from. And everything else is
Yeah, it makes it seem like when you're having issues with the stencil machine now, you're like, oh, I guess it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah. I feel like we got a new thermofax that we've been having a hard time adjusting to the paper, and it's been burning a lot of papers, and everybody's just like, you can deal with it. Fuck it, man up and draw your own stencil, whatever.
Right.
One of the old 3Ms.
No, it's a newer one. It's just that everybody's used to our old thermofax, which was like from the 60s or something. So this new one, nobody knows how to work because honestly, I don't think anybody in our shop is very good with technology.
One thing you can do, and this is a trick so I've got a 3M thermofax, like from the 70s or 80s, that's been refurbished and it works all right, except the speed knob doesn't work very well. So it's either going way too fast or it's way too slow. Right?
There's no in between.
There is no in between. It's either Mach 8 or it's like the pace of a sloth. Right? It's one of the most difficult thermofaxes I've ever had to work with. And I found a little trick, and that is pick up a couple of those thermal carriers, right? Sometimes you need to use more than one. And that's what I do. I'll take my image, put that in my thermofax page, put that inside of a carrier, and then I'll take that carrier and put that inside of another carrier to really diffuse that heat a lot.
Yeah.
And what that will do is that will give you a lighter stencil, because the heat from that bulb, even if it's running super slow, right? The heat from that bulb will be diffused enough that you're still going to get like a nice medium stencil out of it.
Yeah.
That's a really good trick.
It's a good hack, Jason.
So one of the things we've noticed is that the new stencil machine we have, and I have to actually go into the shop and pay attention and see what brand and what it is, because I don't know. I didn't pay attention to that. I just paid attention to where I put the stencil in and everything. they recommended green stencil paper of a certain brand. So when we go back to using our regular Spirit, that's the one that burns a lot. I don't like the green stencil paper though, because it doesn't stick. I feel like it wipes off way too easily and doesn't react with my stencil stuff very well.
Have
But,
you used, has anybody ever used the red stencil paper?
Right here.
Yeah. How do you like that stuff?
All depends on how long you want your stencil to stay.
Okay. Because I was wondering if it were like, I've had some clients before that have very, very dark skin. And, you know, the purple stencils are just really difficult to read under certain light in that particular situation. And, you know, reds and greens will tend to stand out a little more on darker skin. I'm wondering if using a red stencil, I've always wondered if that helped with that problem at all, or if anybody has any experience with that.
It does.
Yeah.
It does. It helps a lot. I will say this, you have to be very, very, very careful when using red stencil paper. You need to have the right stencil solution in order for it to stick, last, and be solid.
Okay.
I'm assuming that's probably the same problem I'm having with the green stencil paper.
Most likely, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I do have a solution for that as well.
Hit us with-
Through trial and error and probably a few $100s worth of buying every bottle of every type of stencil goop I can find. And I'll actually share a link to it now. I'll pull it up. There is one product, you have to get it shipped from Europe, but it is the best stencil stuff I have ever used.
It's not stencil anchored.
It's not anchored. It's not Electrum. It's not anything like that.
Okay.
It is from a company called Aloe Tattoo. Let's see, where is it? Premiere -S. It's carried by two very well-known European suppliers. This one's from Killer Ink. It's called Stencil Plus.
Okay.
Okay. From Aloe Tattoo, and I'm gonna share the screen and I'll show you guys exactly what it looks like. So this is what it looks like.
Awesome.
Okay, I always buy the big one. It doesn't always come with like the spray knob. Sometimes it's like a little hand, like a lotion pump top. But Stencil Plus is what you want to pick up if you're going to use anything other than purple.
Okay.
It's a bit pricey for the bigger bottle. I think it's what? So that's something like $24 for the bottle. So it's comparable, but with shipping and all that stuff, that's where you run into an issue.
Right. Coming
But
from over.
this stuff is so tacky that it doesn't matter what color stencil paper you are using. It doesn't matter how old the stencil paper is. It doesn't matter. None of that matters. It will stick a stencil to any skin type. You don't have to use like primer. You don't have to use, skin toner or anything like that. You put it, and a very little bit will do it. But this stuff is almost immediately tacky.
Nice.
And if you keep the stencil paper on the skin until you start to see it go white, so you know it's like thoroughly drying, that stencil will not move for 8 hours or more.
Nice.
So highly recommend it. Also, and I'm not trying to, knock any other products or anything like that, but for any of you out there that might use an inkjet stencil printer, pick up a bottle of that stuff. Save yourself some time and some money.
Nice.
Because it works beautifully with those inkjet stencils.
All right. I've been looking into maybe getting one of those.
If you get
How
one,
much is
don't
it?
use the printer itself for a good one is maybe $500. And then the actual ink that you have to put into it, maybe another 200.
I mean, for large scale stuff, that's just.
Well, if you're trying to print out like one-shot back pieces, like full back piece stencils like Andre Malcolm,
Yes.
that's a very special type of Epson printer. That's going to run you a bit more. That's probably going to be closer to $1,500.
Yeah, but it seems like you don't have to. It doesn't print just large scale stuff, right?
Oh no, you can print off any size you want.
But once
But
you have
the roll of paper that's attached to it, that's going to come out. So you're always going to be trimming off excess paper. So
yeah. I see.
Yeah, there's also a little trick to getting things laid out at the right size. If you're going to print off a stencil that big, or if you're like me and you like to go through and like tile them together so that everything overlaps and then tape everything together. There's a little software trick that you can use for an iPad that makes that whole process a lot easier.
Share that.
Well, fine. Maybe I will.
I like this, man. We're getting into stencil hacks today. This is good. This is quality.
I'm like, so at the studio I work at, I'm known as the king of one-shot stencils.
Nice.
So like, I don't care if it's a sleeve. I don't care if it's a torso. I don't care if it's a back piece. Like if you want a half sleeve, that's fine. Like full wrap, cool. I got you. I'm printing off one big ass stencil. We're going to stencil your whole arm or your whole torso, and we're going to rock it.
Nice.
And there's an app called Tattoo Print.
Okay.
So this was I think it was a 14 or a 15-inch stencil that I did the other day. And as we all know, thermal fax paper is only made in two sizes. Legal, which is 8.5 by 14, and letter, which is 8.5 by 11, which means anything outside those boundaries. And so let's pull up a photo. Let's say I want to stencil this guy, this little 3D model, right?
Right.
So I have that pulled up. I save it to my camera roll once I'm done in Procreate. Then I'm going to come over here to print mode. Do I want it on a single page or do I want custom size? I always select custom. Print size, set whatever size you need it to be.
Right.
So if you need this 3D model to be, I don't know, say 20 inches wide.
Oh yeah, I haven't been there yet.
Right?
Yeah.
Multi-page overlap, set that to 1. Give yourself a nice 1-inch overlap on everything. You can set it to print with the alignment guides, which I don't think you can really see on the screen, but there's like tiny, tiny little black lines at the top and along the sides. See if I can make that a bit bigger. Yeah. So that's it. So this is just to give you an example. Those tiny little lines are going to come out on everything.
Oh, so you can line them up.
Right. So that will help with your alignment when you go to tape everything together.
Yeah. Awesome.
Okay. So that does that automatically. You can convert it. So if I want to take this 3D image or a photo or anything like that, and I can do it in black and white and then adjust my contrast straight through here. Right. I can adjust my highlights, my shadows, make shadows lighter or darker. You know, I can increase the contrast or decrease the contrast all within the app. It's all right here. I can do it in lines and it'll give you almost like a, in Photoshop, it was called the photocopy feature, right? And photocopy would give you like basic contour lines and all that stuff. So you can do edge visibility, the intensity of them. You can adjust the contrast of the lines. You know, contrast of the image, you know, the brightness, edge visibility, how sharp those edges are. and that's all under lines. You can switch it to dots and it'll give you a halftone pattern. Right? So if you wanted to print off something in a halftone, it's a shame I can't zoom in on this, but you get the idea.
This
You
is
set
all
the
in
dot
Procreate
width. No, this is all in Tattoo Print Systems.
tattoo print systems. Okay.
Yeah, it was designed by Corey Ferguson.
All right. So that's how people are printing out some of these portraits the way that they are, these realistic in a halftone pattern.
It's one of many ways, yes.
I used to do that in like instead of hard lining.
Now, here's the real awesome thing that I love about this. If I were to say, okay, let's go to print,
Drawing
my office jet. Say I want to print it out on letter pages to run through like a 3M thermal fax.
Right.
It will automatically tile whatever image you put in there to give you the exact number of pages with the exact amount of overlap to make it whatever size you want it to be.
That's easier, much easier than printing it out the other way.
You know, and it's like, cool. You hit print, it'll print out page after page after page after page after page, each of the individual sections, throw those on a light table, line them all up, cut off the excess, and boom, there's one huge stencil.
Nice.
So that is Tattoo Print System. Highly recommend it. Also, for those of you that might be using an inkjet stencil printer, you can actually go through, I believe it's under print orientation, because with the inkjet printers, you have to mirror the image. That's all right inside the app. You don't have to do that in Procreate. You don't have to do that in another app. It's all right inside the Tattoo Print System app. So I highly, highly recommend it.
I will look into that. Do you use the inkjet stencil printer?
I have before. One of my coworkers previously had one, and I got to use it a few times. And as long as you use the right stencil solution, it works like a charm every time.
Okay.
But if you don't have the right stencil stuff and you don't have the right process down, good luck ever getting that stuff to stick.
Okay.
Yeah, right. Like fucking, I had to do like a 20-page art history.
You know, between him and I think we went through probably $250, $300 worth of different stencil products to see what would work, what didn't work, what worked better, what was the drying time, was there any like residual waste?
Right.
And that's the one thing, if you use the inkjet stencil solution, they tell you to spray it on, right? Give it a minute and then wipe it off completely, and then spray it on again. And then let that dry for a minute and then put your stencil on. But it's like, why should I have to go through and wipe it off?
Right. Is that where you found that stuff from Europe?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I've been using that stuff for a while. They actually had it for sale. Their premiere sale was at the London convention in 2016. And I came across it and I was like, oh, what's this stuff? This is pretty awesome. Let me, I'll pick up a bottle of it and try it out.
Yeah.
And I did, and I was blown away. It's incredible. Yeah, a lot of those guys out there that use the inkjet stencils, that stencil stuff I mentioned before, that's like their secret weapon.
Okay.
Because there are a lot of people out there that are like, oh, I tried it. I can't get the stencil to stick for very long. You know, it always fades away. It always wipes away. Well, it could be a combination of three different things. Number one, what ointment are you using during your tattoo? Right? If you're using something that's going to degrade your stencil.
Kyle Potterman using that a lot.
Yeah. Yep. Kyle does it. He loves it. But my question is, so like I used to be a big fan of Redemption. Okay. The Redemption tattoo aftercare, and you can use it during a tattoo as well. Every time I used it during a tattoo, I found that my stencil would almost disappear instantly.
Oh, wow.
And that's because the stencil or your tattoo glide that you're using is degrading your actual stencil as you're going through.
Right.
So I switched out what I was using, haven't had an issue since.
It's so uncomfortable.
So
I don't know if it came through before, but I said I'd seen a lot recently. Kyle Cotterman using a lot of that, using the inkjet stencil printer.
yes.
And his stencils look amazing when he puts them on.
Oh, they're incredible.
So clean.
Yeah, he was one of the presenters of the Philadelphia Explorer Conference.
Oh, yeah.
And, he went through and he detailed his color process and, some of the little tricks that he uses. And he has got it down to a science.
The application of the stencil. Yeah.
Everything.
Everything.
His whole process is down to a science.
Nice.
You think about standing up and you're
Yeah, super nice guy, too.
Awesome.
Yeah. It's so big. I react. I don't like goblin mode is like a thing that's pretty friendly.
Yeah, Seth, if you wanted to try some of the S8 red stencil paper, I actually have an extra pack that I take with me whenever I travel to shows.
Okay.
So if you want me to, I'll bring that up for you. It's a small little trial pack. I think it's got like 10 or so sheets in it. Feel free to give it a go, man.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to try it when I have the opportunity for sure.
I always try to tell people, try it out and give it a go on something small and quick first, just to see and try to work out some of the quirks to it. See if you even like using it.
Right. I'm setting up for my my next client right now. Some
Nice.
black and gray flowers and a butterfly that I had started a couple weeks ago.
Nice. Where at?
Forearm, wrapping all the way around.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah. She's wants to kind of she wanted to take a kind of a minimalist approach with the shading, so makes my job a little easier.
Yeah, I'd say. I love doing that minimalism flower stuff, man. It's fun. It's easy. It's very delicate.
This one's all about the line work, right? Like I think she just didn't want heavy shading in there. She wants it to look realistic, but not too much heavy shading. So.
Yeah, that's the trick to a lot of that feminine stuff, man, is focus on your line work. Make sure that's on point and then minimal shading.
Yeah, almost like the tattoo looks completed with just the line work.
Exactly. Well, so that's something that I picked up from Jeff Gogwe. He's got a video out on YouTube called Fundamentals.
Yeah.
And, he in his video, he details the fact that he tries to make every tattoo that he does stand up as a line drawing alone.
Yeah.
And if you can do that, then anything else you do on top of that or in addition to that is going to be a bonus.
Correct. Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
He also has a very graphic and illustrative style. So.
Oh, for sure. I love that style. Also, I've been enjoying a lot of that. I like doing all the realistic stuff, but I enjoy seeing a lot of the people are doing where they're combining very traditional or neo-traditional tattoo techniques with super hyper realistic tattoos.
Yep.
The two images kind of juxtaposed against each other, just very visually striking.
Yeah, my friend Harlan's been doing a ton of that stuff along with what's his name? Casey Gonzalez down at
Okay.
Athens Tattoo.
Yeah.
Him and Harlan Cantner, who also works down at Athens, do collabs at every convention I've seen them. They've been doing collabs with super crazy black and gray photorealism.
Yeah.
And Harlan's got a very neo-trad style. And it's just what they come up with is incredible.
Yeah.
She seemed.
Yeah, I'd love to get tattooed and get a collab done by those guys, but I don't have the room anymore.
I'll be okay.
Yeah, that's
Have
a
you
sad thing.
noticed that?
What's that?
That as your tattoo career progresses, it's
Yeah.
almost like we run out of room.
Yeah, it's kind of a bummer with certain things. You're like, you see all these other artists and you're like, oh man. Not that I don't, not that I'm hating on any of the tattoos I have, but I just, it's fun to get tattoos by friends and stuff like that, keep like mementos and stuff. But over the course of time, you see all these other people coming out, or you see work that you want to get, and you're like, I just don't have the space anymore for that.
Yep.
I just got a cool tattoo from Nick Panzer, who works at Old City Tattoo in Philadelphia.
Oh yeah, man.
He did this little piece on my arm here. I'll show you. I can get this little
Yeah, I'll spotlight you real quick. Hold on.
demon here. Yeah, here we
Oh,
go.
put it. Oh, dude.
Yeah,
Nice.
That's
Little
sick.
burner. yeah. He's my convention buddy. I see him every year at the convention, and it's funny because our shops are like sister shops, but I barely get down there to see them because when I'm around, I'm usually just working at Baker Street. So,
I feel like I never was.
but yeah, he's a good tattooer. Look him up, Nick Panzer.
Yeah. So that's why it's so spectacular. Shut up. Yes. Extra ice. Dude, there's something about it that it just hits different. I know it's good. And when they put it in the clear cup, it makes it great. Oh no, yeah, it's a different experience. Yeah. Anytime I get an active order of art, I put it in the like.
Oh, anatomy. How I hate
That's
you.
looking good. I like the frame
Yeah.
around.
I'm just trying to get some values right. I'm gonna eventually turn this into a digital print.
Okay. Nice.
I've spent a bit of time just trying to define everything and trying to get color schemes right.
Yeah.
I've been actively working on trying to render anatomy a bit better
Okay.
because it's something that I've always struggled with. So I knew it was something that I needed to work on improving.
I went once like years ago.
And I was always raised with the concept of if you can't draw it, you should never tattoo it.
Oh, I agree.
So I've been trying to draw my ass off with anatomy to try to get better at doing that so I can start to incorporate more anatomical stuff into a lot of the tattoos that I do.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, I had more time to do than that, so.
And of course, it's the most difficult things to do, things like hands, faces, eyes.
Yeah.
Those are always the things that end up getting incorporated the best.
Yeah.
It's like kind of a shitty movie, but it's actually pretty good.
Well, at least that's my 2 cents on it. That's my goal for this year, is just to get better at anatomy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. You pick one thing and then work it work it to death, work it as much as you can until you start seeing improvements. What do you use for your black and gray mix, Jason?
So I've become a huge fan of raw pigments. So I actually use the raw pigments, black and gray, either gray wash set or their whitewash set. Lately, I've been leaning a lot more towards their whitewash. I like the way that the values tone down and saturate a little bit easier.
Okay.
And I like the way that their gray wash is nice and smooth. And I've used companies like Empire, and I've used for the longest time, I was stuck on silverback. But I've just found that the raw pigments gray wash sets just make things a lot easier.
Okay, nice.
It was sick. We got it.
All right, and
I
what's the whitewash? They're just, is that a, you know, a wash with white?
So it's and there's a very, very, very well-known black and gray artist who has traveled around, done plenty of seminars. And one lesser known thing about the artist, by the way, is Bob Tyrrell. One of the things that people don't realize, because he came out with a signature set of gray washes a while back through Intens, which is cool. I mean, I'm not a big fan of Intens, but you know, that's fine. One thing people don't realize is that even in his gray wash set, he has a bit of white in his gray wash sets.
Oh yeah.
So there's just a tiny bit, just enough to smooth things out.
Yeah.
So especially with your lighter gray wash values, it really helps you see the tone that you're putting in a lot better.
Nice. I've been, you know, studying people's work over the years and seeing like what some guys are doing. And I started kind of picking up on using, like, for black and gray stuff, I'll set up a couple of cups of a whitewash where I'm using, you know, just straight white, and then like a 50% white, and then like an even lesser white, and, you know, brushing that into like highlighted areas where I need that highlight to be kind of diffused, you know, on the outside edge and not so hard. And then kind of dialing in the sharp highlight, you know, with the pure white with a liner, you know, smaller needle grouping. But I've definitely noticed a difference in the pieces when they come back healed. And I've heard of guys doing that also, mixing the white with their gray wash.
Yeah, the whitewash set is basically just a gray wash set with a tone of white to it, just so that you can see the values a little bit easier. But I have actually also heard of a lot of artists. There's one guy specifically out in Europe that's known for doing that. And he'll take his white, and his concept behind it is, okay, that's great. You're doing all of this black push.
Right.
But in order to get that full value range, you need to do the exact same thing using white as well.
You know, and it's interesting, Jason, we're probably thinking about the same guy, because that's where I picked. I'm like looking at his work. I'm like, that looks, you know, how it goes. You study it, somebody's work, you're zooming in on it, and you're trying to figure things out. And, you know, I like a guy like me who doesn't really travel as much. I just got to kind of find out as much information as I can, you know what I mean? The best way I know how. And looking at stuff like that, you know, it's exactly what I picked up. It was like, man, he's got to be like washing that white, and I just started experimenting with it, and the results were amazing. I was like, oh my God, like I should have been doing this for years, you know. I like using a Bluebird from Waverly for the gray wash. Yeah, that stuff it settles really nicely into the skin when it's all healed up, silvery smooth.
Yep. And that's what I look for in a gray wash, in any gray wash, is I look for that silvery, like gray tone.
Yeah.
You know, it's nice to have just like varying degrees of black, right? Which is what you'll get with some gray wash. Yeah. But to have that healed silver tone, that's what I really look for.
For sure. I noticed a big difference too when I started using witch hazel to cut the wash. And for years I was using water. I mean, for the better part of 15 years.
I used to know a guy that would come up. He used to pre-mix what he called his gray wash solution, right?
Yeah.
And it was actually equal parts distilled water, witch hazel, and believe it or not, gold Listerine.
Oh wow. Okay.
Which apparently was like an old Lyle Tuttle trick.
I was gonna say that's an old school trick, the Listerine, man.
Yep.
Sure. Yep.
And the reason behind that, because I was like, okay, well, why? Why Listerine? Like what? Why does that work well? And it's because Listerine has a small amount of, I believe it's glycerin in it.
Yeah.
And because it's got that in it, it's going to hold on to those pigment particles and disperse those pigment particles a lot better than
Yeah.
using just water or witch hazel alone.
You can drop just glycerin in there too. A couple drops of that, I'm sure.
Yep.
I have heard of people using a drop of green soap as the binding agent.
Oh, wow. That I have not heard of. That's interesting.
I've heard that too. My only concern with that is the amount of rubbing alcohol that's in it.
Yeah. Also, the green soap. Well, if you're using any type of numbing soap or Bactine in there, the second you start hitting it with green soap, you're going to start canceling out the effects of that lidocaine.
Yep.
Really?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
it pulls it right out of the skin. So if you're using Bactine, let's say you have like a large scale project, right? And the client's, spending the money to sit there for the better part of the afternoon. I'll burn through almost a whole bottle of Bactine in that I'll apply it once the skin's open. You put it on there, you lay the plastic wrap over it for like 10, 15 minutes, let it really soak in. So the body gets the full effects of it. And then from that point on, instead of wiping them down with green soap in between, I'll either use the Hustle Butter numbing foam, or any of those like numbing foams, or just I'll have a cup with just, instead of rinse water, I'm just pouring the Bactine into the cup and using that, dipping my rag in that and wiping it. So as I'm tattooing, I'm wiping more Bactine into it. So once you start hitting it with the green soap, it pulls all of that lidocaine and washes it away, and it just doesn't work the same.
Oh my God, this is a game changer that I wish I had known so long ago.
I mean, the big thing too is when you do use it, make sure you wrap them up with plastic and let it soak in for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's one way to get it to be like almost immediately effective. I've been tattooed by artists before that didn't bother to wrap me. They just, instead of using soap the whole time, they would just have a squirt bottle or a squeeze bottle filled with Bactine.
Yeah.
They just use that. You have to be careful when you do that though, because it can dry the skin out and it can dry the tattoo out at a much faster rate.
Okay.
So it can actually go through and cause a certain amount of damage if you're not careful.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah. As well, it's not necessarily just green soap that does that. It's the rubbing alcohol in the green soap that causes that lidocaine cancellation.
Okay. All right.
That's what, so like I'll use Dr. Bronner's, the peppermint soap, which is alcohol free. And I can use that in conjunction with the Bactine to achieve.
I don't know, man. I've had one artist use that on me before. It burns so bad. He's like, it's refreshing. I'm like, no, it burns.
So
yeah,
I have a
just
friend
like any soap. If you mix it too strong, it's going to burn. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, Medusa.
Oh, no worries. I was just gonna say I got a friend up in Tacoma who taught me about the peppermint thing. And yeah, it's all about diluting it enough. Because I was all like, dude, you're putting peppermint on an open wound. You terrible, evil person. It's delusion. He's never had any complaints. Not delusion, diluting.
Okay. So like, what about, don't they have a lavender soap too, right?
They do.
Yeah.
They've got all different types of like, they've got one that's lavender. They've got one that's,
hemp.
It's, well, they're all hemp based. That's what I really like about them, is that they're all natural. They're vegan friendly. They've got they're all pure hemp castile soaps, but they've got any number of different, one has almond in it. It's like almond scented. They've got all different kinds of them, man. One has like a citrus scent.
Nice.
So you can really kind of go through and customize what you're doing. Lavender tends to have a very calming effect, especially on people that are getting tattooed. Maybe you can use that instead.
I would be
You know-
cautious with the almond since so many people
Yes.
have nut
Nut
allergy.
allergies. Yes.
Very common. Not so common, but still an allergen is lavender. But yeah, lavender is an allergy. But it's not a very common one. I know I've only met like 2 people that I know of that have had that as an allergy, but it's used in a lot of like, it's used in hustle butter and all of that. So I think that the essential oil, if diluted enough, won't cause any allergic reactions, because I haven't noticed anything in tattoo products that have lavender causing problems.
Yeah, I knew that there were some people out there that were having reactions to hustle butter because of the mango extract in it.
Yeah,
Um,
the cream I use has mango butter in it. So I always ask everybody beforehand. Mine has lavender and mango in it. So I always ask everybody, what's your allergies? And they're like, oh, nothing tattoo related. I'm like, doesn't matter.
Yes.
What are your allergies? Even if
Answer
it's
the
totally related.
question.
Yeah. Oh, that's another thing. On our release forms, we ask if people have kiwi allergies, because sometimes kiwi allergies can be linked to a latex allergy. That gets brought up a lot. Why are you guys asking about kiwis? And then we have to explain that.
The studio I work at is latex free, so that's not usually too much of an issue for me.
None of
And that's
anybody.
mostly because the owner of the studio has a very severe latex allergy, like anaphylactic shock latex allergy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty
so
bad.
we have to be latex free, which is fine because like nitrile gloves and chloroprene gloves. Ooh, that reminds me, I got to make another glove order. Nitrile gloves and chloroprene gloves, in my opinion, are just as good as latex.
Oh yeah, we use all nitrile at my shop. We have some latex, which we use for cleaning purposes only, because simply with the glove box prices, they're like, when it's $25 a box for gloves and the latex ones are $2 cheaper, we're going to pick those up for cleaning.
Yeah. Yeah, from what I've heard, though, from an industry insider, air quotes, the prices of gloves should be dropping down later this spring and summer. Part of the reason why some of the glove prices from certain manufacturers have stayed so high isn't because they want to maintain profit margins, which is what I originally thought. But it was actually because once everyone started to get restocked with the gloves that they make and carry, there were actually several bad batches of nitrile that went around. There were bad batches of latex that went around for latex gloves, and there were bad batches of chloroprene that were coming out that were not up to quality control standard. One company specifically actually had to throw out over $150,000 at wholesale pricing, like their manufacturer pricing, over $150,000 worth of gloves because they were not up to medical standard.
$150,000 worth of gloves nowadays. What's that, like 12 boxes?
I think it was 10. I think it was like a solid case.
That checks out.
Wholesale. Yeah.
Yeah.
That checks out. How did all of these batches get corrupted?
Actually, it's very easy to understand that. A lot of the manufacturing and chemical refining that goes into the manufacture of these products does not occur in the US. It occurs overseas.
So what, FDA standards are different? Or
FDA is going to FDA is going to regulate the quality of the gloves as far as number of defects, thickness, durability, different types of material reactions, but they're not going to actually go into the factories to regulate the factory production process. if that makes any sense.
Okay. All right, so they regulate the products, but they have no control over the process of the products. being
Correct.
made. Okay, well, that just sounds like a lot of waste. By the way,
Yeah, it
Bomber
sounds like a
wants to say
nightmare,
hi.
right? Aw,
I was trying to
hi,
stop.
Ro.
Hello, everybody. My name's
Hold on, I'll
Bomber.
spotlight you.
Hi.
Hey, hey.
Oh, that's your one, and they jump, and they're like, "Really fine." No, I don't think so.
Ruff.
She's chilling on my desk. I'm trying to build a little ladder so that she can come sit on my desk with me, but so far nothing that I've come up with has worked out. So I actually have to spend the money to get an actual stepping stool ladder so she can come up and hang out on my desk. Which I'm okay with because she's not a cat, so she won't sit on the keyboard.
Yeah.
Only cats do that.
She won't chew on the cables or anything like that either.
No, she ain't got no teeth. She might gum them. Yeah,
Get
just
them all
like that.
soggy.
Yeah, get them very soggy, soggy cables, soggy everything. She has a thing for licking my couch though, and dog saliva ruins everything. So. my
Really? Because
couch-
I mix some of that in with my gray wash and it works like a charm.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, like that's fine, but
Is
I'm
that
not
your
talking-
secret?
It is. It is. That and
That's
it,
the
it
binding
applies
agent.
stencils really well. It really makes those stencils stay for days on end.
That's straight up dog saliva.
Well, yeah, you can't dilute it though.
No, I wouldn't. That would compromise the properties.
We used to mess with people and they'd say, we were finished the tattoo. Hey, how do I take care of this again? I'm like, okay, well, do you have a cat at home? Like, yes. I'm like, okay, have them lick it for hours.
Hours.
I used to
Well,
tell
you know,
people
pets are
scrub
always,
3
like,
times a
drawn to-
day.
You come home with a new tattoo, and even if it's wrapped, like your animal knows immediately that you have a wound, you know, and they're just like they can't wait to tend to it.
Yeah. I just recently got work done on my arm, and our dog, the day I came home, he's all trying to sniff at my arm. I'm like, no, back up.
Yeah. Just let me add it. Let me add it. I'll help.
Oh, Kyle. How are you
Yes.
feeling about the big move?
Excited, ever so slightly nervous, but it'll be great.
Ever so slightly nervous.
Yes.
Just ever so slightly.
Yeah, just barely.
Where are you moving to?
Ohio from California.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
That's a pretty significant move.
it's a
That's
very
fucking
large move.
killer, dude. Congratulations on.
Congrats. Is that a family move or is it a work move?
No, just me and my lizard trying to start my career.
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome. Man. Good
Do you
luck.
have an apprenticeship lined up?
I do not. So I'm just gonna go out there and make some connections and see what I can make work.
Hell yeah, dude. Hell City is gonna be fucking killer.
Kyle, hit me up. I know a couple people in Ohio, depending on what area you're going to be in.
Columbus.
I may have a couple of contacts for you.
Okay, great.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely, man. Same.
Are you gonna be at Hell City, Jason?
Does a duck quack?
I'll see you at Hell City.
Sometimes they don't. I had to make sure.
Oh wait, Medusa's going to be there. Never mind, I'm not going.
Ah, dang it. This is exactly what happens with my dating life too.
No, I'm definitely going to be there. I'll be working, selling prints. I was trying to get in to actually tattoo edit, but I missed the cutoff by 1 day.
Oh, bummer.
Yeah, I heard Lauren talking about that. She beat you to the booth.
She did. I was literally 24 or less than 24 hours short because when you book a booth for Hell City, you have to have your deposit ready to go, all of your paperwork ready to submit, and you can't book a booth by yourself. You have to have someone else in that booth with you, which means they also have to have all of their paperwork to you. They also have to have everything else lined up. And if everything isn't submitted at the same time, you don't get it.
Gotcha.
So awesome.
So I'm pretty sure it was like 6 hours late from the last booth being sold.
Let's plan it next year, Jason. Let's get at it.
Oh, it's already done for next year. I know they're going to announce the dates after this last one, and I'm going to submit my stuff the day after this next one ends.
Awesome.
I am so excited.
I don't know, Seth, though. I don't know if I can be in a booth next to you, man.
Well, I do fart a lot, but that should be no reason.
Well, I mean, that was only part of the issue. I mean,
That's only part
next to you, I'm going to look like a kindergartner coloring with crayons.
Stop.
I'm going to be like, I can do this. I can draw.
Here, bring me with you, then you'll look better.
Yeah, right, Kyle. Even some of the stuff you do, I'm like, fuck, I have to work harder.
Damn, thank you though. I appreciate that.
You know, it's good though. It pushes me to get better, to do better, to work harder, to, you know, and work on stuff I know I need to work on, you know, and just really try to kick things up a notch.
Absolutely.
And that's the way that I look at everything in that kind of a light. You know, I'll look at guys like Shige, I'll look at Jeff Gogwe, and I'll be like, yep, there's the kick in the pants I needed. Time to work harder.
That's, you know, it's good to be in a booth with somebody who is, it doesn't matter really the level of experience so much as it does like the nerdism with it, right? Like how into it are you? How consumed do we get by tattooing? Can we have conversations about it? And, you know, kind of it's fun to share information with, you know, and experiences with people like that. So, you know, I'm down to do that whenever. You're kidding me? The amount of work and effort that you put into some of the stuff that you do, Jason, it's insane. Everybody, I watch all you guys. I've been watching all you guys work over the last couple of weeks, and it's been great. I love having this conversation with you. It's definitely inspiring.
Yeah, part of the reason why I put in all of the time that I do into some of the things that I do is because I literally have no life. I don't. I can admit that. I have zero life outside of tattooing and art.
Hey, I'm there with you. Don't worry.
Like occasionally I'll like put a movie on the TV and like do nothing but watch the movie. But unless it's tattoo related, I don't really do anything.
But during the entire time you watch that movie, you're thinking about upcoming projects.
Actually, I'm looking at like lighting, set design, you know, camera angles and perspective.
Missing the plot completely.
Before we get started.
Oh, I couldn't tell you what the last 3 movies I saw were about, but I can tell you what the lighting was like. Oh, that's cool. That's a good one. They shot it with a blue light from this angle and like a nice warm yellow light from this angle to really push that contrast there. Or like, oh, wow, I didn't even notice they had a purple light on this character to kind of bring out some of these tones, right? I couldn't tell you what the movie was about, but I can remember the lighting scheme.
I used to have the same problem. I wouldn't be able to watch a movie without thinking about the editing process. Man, watching Sin City, don't know what that movie's about. Not at all. Just seen it like a dozen times, and every time I'm just like, how'd they get that effect? Completely missing anything that actually happened.
Once again, I wish I could tell you what it was about, but I can tell you that the graphic style and the ambiance in it with those very selective color tones, I can now see why a lot of people always come into the studio and they're like, oh, I want all black and gray. But can we add a pop of color here, 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 and here?
So you want a color tattoo?
And it's like, so yeah, that's what I tell them. And I'm like, so you want a color tattoo? No, I don't want color. But I want these eyes to be red. I want these eyes to be blue. I want this to be gold. And it's like, so you want a color tattoo?
Well, that goes back to what we had talked about. I think it was last week, Jason. I'm going to do this about having the, might have been a week before that, having the conversation with the language that we use in the vernacular that we use with clients and how we use it, right? Like, you know, some of them just don't know any better, and they're talking about a pop-up color here, a pop-up color there, and you kind of have to have the conversation with them about what that really means, you know, and how what they're looking for can be done effectively, or if what they're looking for can be done effectively, you know. And then having the confidence to relay that information.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I try to clarify it to people in this nature. I try to explain to them and get them to understand that, like, that may look cool now, but everyone is going to ask you when you're coming back in to get it finished.
Yeah.
That's what I tell everybody. That's all, like, I want it black and gray, but I want this part in color. I'm straight up, my first thing that I always tell everybody is, so we can do that, definitely. But just so you know, it's always going to have a sense of looking unfinished. And are you prepared to answer for the rest of your life the same question over and over of, hey, that's a great tattoo, when are you going to get it finished? And almost, like, pretty much every single time, the client's always like, yeah, I don't want to do that. Let's go full color, or let's go full black and gray.
Right.
What should be once again?
I think when they realize that it's a lifelong time of answering the same question over and over again, that kind of helps them settle on one or the other.
Yeah. Sometimes people don't quite grasp that until you put it in those kinds of terms, you know. And it's, I think Seth hit the nail on the head. It's all about the vernacular and the vocabulary that you're using when discussing these things with clients,
and how you're using it, right? Like, that
true.
confidence factor. Yeah.
By the way, is that weird buzzing I'm hearing in the background? Is that one of them old coil machines?
Oh man, my coworker's a Neanderthal using that coil machine technology.
It's so loud. I can barely hear you, Seth.
With a rock.
I can barely hear you over the sound of that old eclectic machine that she's running.
I will say this to anybody out there who still uses the coils, and I have a very fond appreciation for them, and I understand how awesome they are. But there's nothing quite like the sound that you get when all, 4 or 5 of coil machines in one shop are in unison. It's really wild. It's cool.
Yeah, nothing will compare to that ever.
No.
Especially if they're all tuned in to be on, like, the same, like, the same speed.
Yeah.
Dude, and it's just like you have this, like, weird audible waveform that just, like, fluctuates throughout the studio.
That's a perfect description. It's exactly what I'm talking about.
I'm just really glad I don't have to constantly check my contact points anymore to figure out what the hell is wrong with my machine.
Yeah. Well, but look, I think it's really important. And I heard a couple of artists talking about this a few weeks ago on a live stream on Instagram. Is that I think I mentioned this before, the importance of having a knowledge about those machines instead of, Jason, you had said about being able to take them apart and put them back together. It's so invaluable, and it's whether or not you're using the machines or not, it's important to understand that how they work. I think, not just for the history portion of it, but for the application of tattoos themselves, even if you're only using rotary machines. Well, why do rotary machines work differently? We'll take apart a coil machine and you'll find out why, learning how they work properly and why they work.
Well, when you learn how they're working and stuff, you're also learning why people prefer certain things over another. Like, why are coils notoriously better liners?
Yeah.
Which is why I got a Numa 4. So I can have the lining magic of a coil, but not have to deal with the mechanics of constantly, maintaining it.
Yeah. I will say that is exactly where Carson Hill got it completely right.
Yep. Carson, every time I pull out my Numa and I start lining, it's a sweet, sweet day.
I've never used one before because I was always in the old Numas, like they had to be air compressed, right?
No, these are rotary pen machines.
Okay.
These are not like the old style pneumatics,
Okay.
even though they do have the same name as the old pneumatics.
Oh, my mistake. Okay.
Yeah.
I have to try
Same
them.
company,
I'll have to
different type of machine though.
yeah.
I
I will
highly-
definitely give that.
Yeah, if any of your friends have a Numa that you can like borrow to try, that's great. But yeah, I am loving my Numa so much. My lines are coming out crispier than fried chicken.
I've noticed.
Nice.
I'm stoked. And it's got a bunch of different cams too, so you can adjust it for your stroke and all of that. I'm pretty fond of just using it as a liner because I don't want to like in the middle of a tattoo have to take apart the machine and put in a different cam and everything. I've been using a different machine for shading and everything, but my Numa liner, ooh, so good. So good.
I will definitely try one. I've been using for years now. I've just been using the Cheyennes for everything. But I would love to try one of those Numas.
I got to try one before. I didn't purchase one, but I did get to try one before. I did like the feel of it. It does feel like using a coil because it's got that very quick snap down, right? Which gives you that impact and that feeling of using a coil that everyone misses.
Yeah.
But for me, I'm with you, Seth. I have a couple of different pen machines and, I use those depending on what I'm doing. Like my
Yeah.
go-to is my Sol Nova.
Yeah, man, for sure. I use the Hawk pen more when I have heavy outlining to do because I feel like it's a little more forgiving than the Nova. Somehow, I don't know. It's just me or the way that it runs. It just runs a little bit differently. But both of them are just, I've heard people say, "Oh, I can't outline with those things." Even like Jason at the shop, he's like, I tried. I can't outline with them. I find that like for me, whether or not you have to move a little bit slower or not, like it's just efficient, like I can pull a nice long clean line. And it's easier to do.
Well, and I think you hit on something very important there with what you just said, like very important. And it's one of the things that when I was being taught about tattoo machines, it was the one thing that kept getting stressed to me by everyone I talked to. And they said, it doesn't matter how it's set up. It doesn't matter how it's, like what springs are on it. It doesn't matter what A-bar, none of that matters. The question is it running efficiently? And is it running consistently?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because if it's not being consistent, then it doesn't matter what you can do. You're never going to have a consistent tattoo.
Right. I had a conversation with Clue years ago about, when people were really getting into the science behind the machines and the, voltage and spring tensions and stuff like that. He says, that's a good point. He goes, if you can't pick up a coil machine and run it against your finger and know that it's not running right by feeling it, he's like, you're in the wrong game, dude. Like you can do all the studying and numbers and all that stuff you want, but you got to be able to pick that thing up and just feel it. It's like a race car, right? Like you just know when it's running right or when something's not running right. And then from there, if you need to make any adjustments, I'm not saying there's not value in knowing all of the information and the science behind the machines themselves. But when you run that armature bar against the pad of your thumb, if it's running right or not.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of feel involved with it. And with the pens, I more than anything, they've saved my fingers from going numb, from my hands from hurting, from holding all of that weight. That's been the number one thing. All of the consistency beyond that is, not having to struggle with tuning the machine as much or anything like that. That's been great. It's been fantastic. But I feel like I've added years to my tattoo career by using these things, because I've taken away all of that concussive vibration that happens when using coil machines.
So for me, I made the switch for a different reason. I made the switch because a few years ago, I decided to start applying the scientific method to a lot of different things. And essentially what the scientific method is control your variables, right? If you really want to see what a desired outcome is, you need to control your variables in order to control the outcome. And what I started to notice was that rotary machines, doesn't matter if it was a pen, like the Cheyennes, it didn't matter if it was something more like a Neotat, like a slider, or if it was something more like a direct drive. There were less variables with those machines than there were with coil machines.
Yeah.
With coil machines, you have to worry about springs. Are the springs wearing out? Is there carbon buildup on the contact point? You have to worry about rubber band tension. You have to worry about needle bar bend. You have to worry about the types of grommets that you're using. Are they the same grommets? Are they different grommets? Are they soft? Are they hard? Are you using paper towel for your grommet? If so, do you have a consistent amount of paper towel on there?
Yeah.
What types
what
of rubber
brand they
bands
are
are you using?
Yeah, what brand
exactly.
Yeah. Whereas with the
those
coil
are
machine
all variables.
and the
And when
rotary,
you start to,
oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Sorry, Ben. I was going to say, when you start to control those variables, you can really sit back, not focus on the equipment that you're using, and just focus on executing a solid tattoo.
Well said. That's perfect. I mean, the worrying about the skin tension and how each individual client's skin, that's enough. That's enough for me to worry about. I don't want to have to fidget with my machine during the middle of a tattoo as well, beyond the speed of it,
Right. I'm a huge advocate of learning coil machines. I believe that it should be done.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, I couldn't begin to imagine using those on a regular basis again, just because of how inefficient I have found them to be. And because I don't want to have to worry about things.
Yeah. It's not that you can't do it with the coil machines. It's just that you're making your job easier with the rotaries. You really are.
I mean, I think what it comes down to is, do you want to be an artist and a mechanic at the same time all day, every day? Because you can learn the skills of a mechanic, but I don't want to have to fucking do it all the time.
Right. Well, so that was something that I was asked when I went through my first apprenticeship was, am I mechanically inclined? Right. And they let me know right off the bat that there's going to be an element of learning how to tattoo where if you are not mechanically inclined, you're going to be in some trouble. And I took that to heart.
You used to have to be, it was so important, because that was more than 50% of the job, was knowing your machines.
Yep.
Getting them to run right. But I use the analogy a lot with my clients when they ask, because they'll say, well, how come your machine's quiet? Or, and I'm always making a joke, oh, it's the silent assassin, right? But the reality for me, or the analogy I use, is I'll say, it's kind of like you can have a top of the line muscle car. It's just, everything completely tricked out, dialed in, polished, ready to go. And it runs amazing, and it'll crush on the race course and stuff like that, right? Quarter miles or whatever it is that they're doing. And it's, beautiful, a work of art, and it'll certainly get you from point A to point B and do it very efficiently. But these rotary machines, it's like driving a Ferrari or a Lamborghini. It's just a whole nother ball game. It's so much smoother. It's so much more efficient. It's so much more responsive. It's, you try and fill in a large field of black and gray, and you're doing it with a coil machine, and you feel like I feel like I'm doing it with a paintbrush, right? Then I pick up a rotary machine and I'm using same large needle grouping, but all of a sudden it's like using an airbrush. It's just way easier.
I have a coworker in my shop that refuses to acknowledge the benefits of a rotary and is constantly just yelling out in the middle of conversations about machines, loyal to the coil. I'm loyal to the coil. You can't change my mind.
We'll see when their hands are all crippled when they're 55 years old.
I was just going to say, I want to hear them in 20 years tell me about the carpal tunnel and how they're still loyal to the coil, but they can't work anymore because they have carpal tunnel now from holding a 1 pound object, weighting their hand back the whole time.
See, that's one thing I love about the Numa too, is that it's like the weight distribution is forward. So it's not, even with the battery pack on, it's not pulling things back. I got the brass grip too, antimicrobial, don't have to autoclave it.
Wise maneuver.
Yeah, it was a couple of extra $100, but I was like, you know what? The increasing amount of shops that don't have autoclave is like what makes it so that I want less autoclave stuff.
Right?
Yeah, a lot of shops are going completely disposable, and like there's so many shops here in Portland that do not have an autoclave. Everything is disposable.
It's amazing that the health department doesn't require it though. You know, like that used to be a thing, like whether or not you're using set equipment, you had to have one, you know, or you still have to have.
They've gone
it's
back
like even if it was there collecting dust, you still had to have one on premises.
Right. They do that with ultrasonic cleaners.
Yeah, I can honestly say I do not miss dipping my hands into liquid death every time I would have to go to scrub tubes.
Yeah. Where you get a
I do
coworker
not
that
miss
leaves
that
the
at
off,
all.
just filling the air with stuff. No thanks. Yeah, I'm happy to just be disposable these days.
I am very glad I made the changeover as well. I always feel bad about the amount of waste that I'm making, but like it's not making a huge difference considering the tattoo industry has a lot of waste. I mean, for one tattoo, we're throwing out like half a roll of paper towels anyways. So I am trying to just swallow that
you bring
guilt.
that up. I actually found the other day on Instagram someone that decided to start making stainless steel cartridge tips that you could buy the old school needles on bar, clip them down to a certain length, and everything was autoclavable so that you would toss out the needle, but then you would still have to scrub the cartridge tip.
Huh.
Okay. All right. And that would make a lot of more free space in the sharps container too. Less hauls to the biohazard department.
See, that's like something clever born out of necessity, right? Like somebody figuring out, well, we're wasting too much stuff. How can we get around that?
Can you send me? Oh, sorry.
No, it's okay. Just going back and finding that old approach of, getting rid of the needle bars and keeping the tubes. Like that's brilliant. Yeah, send that out.
Yeah, send me a link to that.
See if I can
I've got so many needles still ready. Like I need to use them up before the packaging expires. I guess
so my friend Ian, who's going to be at the Skin Industry Expo, still uses coils every day. So I was very fortunate in the fact that I was like, yo, dude, I got all of these boxes of Black Claw needles that I'm not using anymore. Want to give me like $5 a box? And he was like, yeah, here. He's like, I don't really use anything under a 7-liner though. So don't know if I'll have a need for those, but I'll take them anyway for the price.
Oh my God, Black Claw needles for $5 a box.
Like full boxes too. This was right as I made the transition over to cartridges.
Dang.
Yeah, I used to go back and forth all the time, and I sold him boxes of needles, disposable tubes to go with them, like the whole nine. I was like, yeah, it's like $3 a box for tubes, $5 a box for the needles. You know, mix and match. I don't care. Whatever you don't want, I'm going to throw out anyway. And I did.
One of my friends converted a couple years ago to the almighty cartridge usage, and sold me, because I was still doing needle on the bar and coil and everything, sold me all of his tubes and grips and everything, stainless steel, everything, the whole lot of it for $60.
Wow.
And it was amazing. It was like over 100 pieces. It was awesome. And then of course, within a month and a half, I converted over to cartridge. Because I got sick of thinking them.
I did the same, selling a bunch of my coil machines off, but I was very careful to hold on to a few of them. I still have my Aaron Kane Safari G liner, or Aaron Kane Grimy G liner, and I had to let go. My coworker, I was trying to get him to switch over to using rotaries and stuff, and I was happy to sell it to him. But it was one of my favorite machines for a while. There was the Shag built rotary, and it's like
the Shag built D20.
Yeah, man. It's Army green. It was one of like the first issues of them. They're just kill. It is an absolute monster of a machine. It kills it for a rotary machine, for that slide system. It's awesome. It was such a workhorse, man, and so good. So it's kind of like bittersweet to see it go, but I'm glad it went to a good friend and somebody who uses it almost daily. But I can't recommend his machines enough either. They're fantastic.
Who made those?
Do you think? Crap. I need to get my plane ticket to Columbus for Hell City. I'm wondering if I should wait for tickets to drop in price, or if at this point they're only going to rise.
Probably only going to rise. Usually you start to see. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, buy them Tuesday night into Wednesday morning is when you're going to get the cheapest price usually.
Correct.
I did just get a notification from Skyscanner last week telling me that the price for a ticket had dropped like $200. It was super cheap. It was a round trip and everything. And of course, that was right after I paid a bunch of bills and had no money in my bank account yet, and had to wait to go back to work and get some more money. And then of course the ticket price had changed by then.
Also, one thing you can do to check the ticket price and try to get a cheaper flight, by the way, lesser known fact, a lot of airlines actually go through and track the IP address of the computer that's used to check flight prices. So if you log in from a different location, there's a pretty good chance you're going to see a cheaper price.
Yeah, the more you check, the higher the price.
Bingo.
Yeah, I spent one day checking it on my laptop at home. So I am going to, as soon as my Venmo transfers to my bank account and I get the money for all the tattoos I did this week, and I'm going to check again from, I think I'm going to buy the ticket from the work computer, because that way I'll have the Hell City page up and I'll be able to convince some of my coworkers to get in on it with me.
I've never been to that show. definitely need to get out there for that. I just need to get out and travel more in general.
Yeah, man, we got to break you out of your shell.
I know, man. Times they are changing for me, Jason. I'm trying.
Well, I mean, at the same time, there's something to be said for having continuous income where you are. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
something to be said for that kind of consistency and reliability.
Yeah.
Traveling is great and it's fun, but I always tell people only travel if you can afford to take a total loss on it.
Yeah.
Like that is the only time you ever should travel. Because if you start traveling and you don't make any money and you were depending on the money you were going to be making,
Yeah.
no good can come of that.
Right. Well, you got me excited about thinking about possibly traveling out to Arizona there at the end of August.
Yeah, it's still, I'm still trying to get shit figured out for that.
Yeah, man.
And if things don't work out and they sell all the booths before I can actually pick one up, then
Yeah.
I'll just do it next year, which might
Yeah,
actually end up working out a little bit better for me. But I'm always down to do it. Right now, I'm only thinking up till June. I haven't even started looking beyond that yet.
Yeah. Is your friend still interested in getting that nine-tailed fox?
Absolutely.
Awesome, man. I was doing a little bit of research on that the other day.
Oh, dude, I've already started getting a folder together of like reference material
Hell yeah, man.
and stuff like that. So
Next time I'm down in Philly or something like that, I'll come out and see you and we'll chat
yeah,
about it.
we'll start chatting, planning, maybe doing some mock-ups. I'm still waiting for her to get me a picture of her back so that we can get a better idea of like body shape.
Sure.
Let me see. I think it was in this Facebook group that they had them. It might take me a while to find those like reusable tattoo cartridges.
So this is a live stream. You're on YouTube. We're on YouTube right now, right?
No, I'm on. So I've got a dual monitor setup. So
Okay.
I'm scanning through one of the Facebook groups I'm a part of.
Okay.
And I'm trying to find it because I think it was posted in there, but I could be wrong. If not, it was just something I came across randomly on Instagram. And I was like, what is this? I mean, it's lesser known. It's from a very, very off-brand company. And I don't believe they're actually made in the US, but it's definitely something that, might be worth looking into for those people that are trying to go through and, maybe be more sustainable.
Yeah.
I guess is the right way to phrase that.
Sure. Earth conscious people. Turn on this one.
Maybe I haven't saved in my favorites.
What type of when you guys doing any watercolor paintings? What type of watercolors do you like to use, or inks, liquid acrylics?
Dr.
I'm a
P.H.
big-
Martin's
Yeah.
all day, every day.
Now,
I will
those are
never,
Not
I don't know if I'll ever go, or sometimes golden. I'll use some golden.
Yeah. The
I
pH
use-
Martins are not light fast though, correct?
The radiant watercolors are not, but their hydrous and their spectralite lines are.
What were you gonna say, Medusa?
Oh, I used to use the FW acrylic inks and had a large collection of a bunch of colors, and my box of that disappeared about a year ago. So now I just don't do anything. Well, I actually have been using koi watercolors.
I've
I
got
love
plenty of those. I like 'em.
FWs is what I've been using, but some of them tend to be a little chalky.
I think there's a couple of colors that just don't seem to come out right with the FWs. I had a purple one that was like translucent. And by the time you put down enough layers to make it somewhat opaque, you had destroyed the paper you were working on.
Is that the Purple Lake? It's all shimmery.
Yes, I hate
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Yeah. I used to use the what is it? The PH Martins. I don't know why I stopped using the Hydrus. I don't know if they weren't bright enough or intense enough. But I did start a couple of those Goldens, Jason. You had mentioned are fantastic. Maybe I give the PH Martins another try. I know the Radiant ones are amazing, but you got to scan those suckers in quick, man, and then just file them away so they never see the light of day.
Right?
I've seen a painting before that it was hanging in the shop that I had worked at when I first moved up to Massachusetts back in '03. The guy I worked with had a painting that was it was a Mike Dorsey painting, and it was done with Radiant watercolors, and it was of a Hanya, and she's holding the arm, holding her own arm and running away, and every amount of like blue and orange in it had just disappeared. It would just look like portions of it just looked like a line drawing.
Okay, so I
Have you
just
seen
found it
some of those
again.
some of those large paintings he's been doing?
Yeah, dude.
12 feet tall. Are you kidding me?
I mean, if he can do them, I mean, I can only imagine what size brush he's using.
It's
You know what I'm
amazing.
saying?
And they're perfect. Like to do that, he's sitting on the floor for a lot of it.
Yeah.
It's incredible. Like to just have it. It reminds me of those old like graffiti guys from like New York back in the 80s, like Don D. White and all them. They would stand 1 foot, they're in between train cars painting giant murals. Like, how are you even keeping the proportions of what you're drawing correct? And it's just like right up on top of it. It's amazing. Mike Dorsey is incredible.
So I'm going to share this with you. And this is what I was talking about, the reusable cartridges. Let me pull up the one video that they have. And it's like a whole kit that comes with each cartridge. And they're all autoclavable, stainless surgical steel. Here we go. And share. So I don't know how well you guys can see it, but
Good. Awesome.
those are reusable tattoo cartridges that you put in your own needles. So if you like a preferred brand, but they don't make cartridges, they're
Wow.
literally just like steel tattoo tips, but they have an extra component in there with a spring. And you can get them made in any grouping. And it's pretty ingenious the way that these guys do it.
Pretty clever.
That's pretty awesome.
I think that's two 15 mags.
This is DC cartridge steel.
Yes.
.com.
And you put a rubber band around it to make sure that everything, is held down.
But see, then you're getting back into those variables again, right, Jason?
Right. Now they do have some of them that have just like standard rubber O-rings that you throw out after the fact. This one actually looks like it has a stabilizer that's soldered on. So that could be useful. Now, my only real major question is, with a lot of the cartridges that we have out nowadays, they come with a built-in membrane and barrier to prevent backflow. Not that I've ever had an issue with that because I'm not tattooing upside down. And I'm pretty sure that's the only way that that would happen. I can't say I've ever had backflow in a cartridge ever. But it does have that membrane there to help prevent that should it ever happen. With these, it makes me wonder what you can possibly do to prevent backflow with a steel cartridge such as this.
Okay, so these don't have membranes.
No.
I've definitely over dipped and gotten some stuff up around the ferrule of the machine, you know.
See, I can't say I ever have. Maybe I'm just working like little bit by little bit by little bit.
Precision.
Yeah, but it's, you know, it's a new concept. I think if they had some way to incorporate some type of a membrane, that would be useful. I'm not sure how they would go about creating that and utilizing that within an apparatus like this, but I definitely think it would be useful.
I agree.
You know, but I mean, the theory behind it is sound. I mean, everything's precision milled. So if you look at that, that's precision center milling. And I can only imagine how stable that must feel in your hand. Plus, I think it would give you the versatility to use all different types of brands. But I mean, that's just, go ahead.
No, go ahead. You go.
I mean, that's just me. I mean, you're still going to run into variables. You're still going to have things that, you know, you have to factor in, such as, okay, well, if there's no center stabilizer for the push rod on the back, and you're using a liner and there's nothing to stabilize that how can I say it? There's nothing to stabilize that needle bar more forward towards the tip, like we have in a lot of current cartridges with stabilizers, then you're still going to get a little bit of wobble and you're still going to get a little bit of inaccuracy. But I mean, the theory is sound.
Yeah.
It's a good starting point.
Definitely a way to be more sustainable, for sure.
I have to check in with Ricardo and see how that painting's going along for him.
Oh, he's probably already done it and started a new one by now. Like, he's that fast, man. He really is incredibly efficient.
Where is Ricardo right now?
I'm not sure. I sent him the link. But yeah, so this is the stainless steel reusable tattoo cartridge.
I'm into
And
it.
they're out of Brazil.
Yeah, very cool. I'd definitely be into that.
Yeah, once again, I think for a starting point, a good good place to start from as far as the concept goes. I think they're, definitely in the running. I would like to find a way to prevent backflow and have some type of a membrane in it, but beyond that, looks pretty sound. I think the argument would then become, well, okay, how is that any different than using something like a neotat or any number of other types of, rotaries? Stella, now is not the time, sweetie. Sorry. My cat wants attention and she's an attention whore.
I'll give her attention. We'll give that cat so much attention.
You would too. She's gorgeous.
Give me to that cat.
Give the cat a bomber.
Ugh. Bomber. Bomber doesn't even notice other animals around. She
Trying to
is
clear
strictly
space
a
for you to
human
come
lover.
over. Sorry.
No. So scared.
Hey guys, I actually do have to get running in just a minute though.
All right.
I have to head over to the studio. I'm actually taking measurements today for that female torso.
Oh man, awesome.
So I'm going to have like exact measurements that I can lay out and everything like that. So
Fuck yeah.
Let me see that. Can you spotlight that study you were working on?
well, the one I was just working on is actually digital painting, but
Oh yeah. Okay.
yeah, it's just something that I like to work on, every now and then.
That's
I'll eventually
very
be making
great.
a print of it, but
That's awesome, dude.
Very lovely.
You're laying out your little swatches off to the side there just so that you can keep your colors consistent. Is that what that is?
yeah, it makes things a lot easier when you're switching back and forth between a lot of very similar colors. You can just pick on your color picker, pick the next color, pick that guy. Nope, that guy. That's
Is
the
that-
right one.
Is that easier than just creating a new palette?
Well, it saves me a little bit of time because otherwise I have to take my hand, go all the way up to the color palette, select the next color, and then tap the screen to close the palette and then continue paint. Whereas I can just pick the color picker, select it, and go.
Awesome.
Milliseconds. Milliseconds matter.
Milliseconds do matter because it's all about efficiency.
Streamlining the process. I like it.
So that's just the digital painting I've been working on,
It looks really
which will
good.
I'll eventually have the print for sale. Probably print it out at 20 by 40. Well, maybe a little smaller, maybe 18 by 36.
Nice.
But
Let me
these
know,
are all
man.
the torso studies that I've been working on, figuring out which ones will work, which ones won't work.
Awesome.
That's a really cool template you have.
Well, this was actually designed right off of the reference photo of the client's body.
Okay.
And that's why you see like all these little blue scribbles.
Other tattoos?
Right. Those are existing tattoos. And that's why the arms stop where they do, because I know for a fact she already has a full right arm sleeve.
All right.
So I have to block out those areas in order to go through and make sure that, you know, I'm not going to run into anything else.
Gotcha. Noted.
Yeah. But on that note, I'm going to go through and we can start doing some sign offs. Medusa, if you want to hop back on cam.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I forgot I turned that off.
I'm
Hello.
going to spotlight you.
All right. Hi, I'm Medusa. You can find me on Instagram at Medusa Slays with 3 S's at the end. Or my website, medusaslays.com. I'm located in Portland, Oregon.
Awesome. Thank you very much for jumping in today and joining us. It's always a pleasure to have you on here.
Thank you for having me.
Anytime. And Seth, I'm going to spotlight you.
Awesome. I'm Seth Mushrush. You can find me on Instagram at Seth Mushrush or my website, sethmushrushart.com. Turn it around for me. This is what I've been working on this afternoon. The client just got here, so.
Very nice.
Yeah, thanks, man. Jason, thanks for having me on. I really enjoy these conversations and some good stuff today, man. I love all that, those stencil hacks and everything we got into. It's good information, bud.
You're very welcome, man. It's always great to have you on here. So
Thanks, bud. See you next week.
anytime. Take care. And for those of you that don't know me, my name is Jason Leeser. I host the Self-Improvement Sunday drawing groups every Sunday at 1 p.m. here on the Reinventing the Tattoo channel. If you liked the show today, click the like and subscribe buttons. This way we know that you do like it, and we can continue to provide you with more content such as this. Thank you very much for watching today. And for anyone that might be out there that's like me and drinks a whole lot of coffee, cheers to you.
Coffee. Cheers.
Cheers.
Yeah.
All right, and we'll switch back to gallery real quick. Kyle, you still there?
Yes, I am.
Good. Let's get a sign off.
Yeah, sure. I'm Kyle Bernstein. You can find me online at Skies of Fire Tattoo or skiesofiretattoo.com. And I just put a bunch of paintings that I have up for sale as well as taking commissions. So if you want any art, hit me up and we can make something happen.
Awesome, man. Love that color scheme you got going on with the acorn or the pine cone.
It's supposed to be a mushroom, but yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been trying to work on the on some color this for this week, so this is one of the exercises for it.
That color combo is awesome, dude.
Thank you.
Sweet. Thank you very much for joining us today, man.
Yeah, of course. It's always great to be here.
All right, well, I'll switch back to gallery mode. Everyone, thanks for joining us, and we will see you next week.